What's going on? How are you out there? It is your boy Thinker back yet again. 4 days of streaming in a row. Your boy is on a hot streak, but it is mostly because I was not going to stream today. I was going to enjoy some video games and hanging out after the podcast last night. I was going to chill, have a quiet evening without any of this stuff, but I saw this posted today. Eric Nicksick and his Versus podcast put out this was live, but put out a response to a response, which is something that you never want to do. You never want to respond to the response. So this catfight between Nicksick and Strickland just continues on and on, apparently. And I also thought it was pretty funny that Eric Nicksick spelled his name wrong. So that was the first thing that I noticed. I actually was re-listening to the podcast that I did yesterday with Chase on this channel during my work hours, getting some, double duty action going there, doing my day work and listening back to the podcast. And I looked over on the little sidebar and I was like, oh, Eric Nicksick. Wait, that doesn't say Eric Nicksick. It says Erick Nicksick. And I was like, what is that? And then I saw it was Eric Nicksick's podcast. And then I saw it was a response to a response. It was Eric Nicksick talking about Sean Strickland's response to his comments on Ariel Helwani after Sean's loss to Drekus. So I was like, I could listen to this while I play video games, but I'm on a roll, baby. We're full steam ahead in 2025. So since the watch along for the fights was not optimal, it was a little bit of a mess. We had some stops and starts and all that kind of stuff. Had to restart it a couple of times. You're getting bonus streams during the week this week. And here I am for it. Checkmate. How's it going, brother? Beeb, what's up? What games do you play if you say COD or Fortnite? You have to unsub. I do not play COD or Fortnite, no, but I'm down with them, though. I like to watch them occasionally. I like to watch good players play those kinds of games. Me, myself, I play a game called Omega Strikers. If you have not heard of Omega Strikers, you're not alone, but it is my favorite game of all time. It is a 3v3 competitive battle, or like a sports brawler, I guess you could say. It's almost like air hockey with abilities. And I used to be pretty decent at it, but apparently I've just started to suck over time because I was a decently ranked player at one point. Now I'm just middling at a low elo and cannot get out of that. So that's another reason why I didn't want to game tonight. I played one game earlier and I was like, you know what? Fuck this. See what's going on in the MMA world. Also, I bit my tongue earlier, so if it sounds like I have a little bit of a lisp today, it's pretty much because of that. Like I'm kind of rebiting it every time that I speak here. I got like a big chunky tongue right now. So, perfect for streaming, right? The one thing that I have to do is talk, and my fat tongue is getting in the way of making that a possibility. John motherfucking Dong, how are you, sir? We're going to get into this Eric Nicksick addressing Sean Strickland's comments, basically. I guess he's going to go into detail about the performance and the Ariel interview. It's only an hour long, or just over an hour, so feel free to talk about literally anything besides this. I just wanted to hear. I listened to just the intro. The intro was what made me want to jump on after I said, look, I'm going to listen to the intro portion because they do that whole thing where they preview what's going to be on the episode. And I was like, let me hear what it just that by itself and see if there's anything that jumps out at me as worthy of streaming. And hearing the way that Nicksick was talking in the intro, he sounds like he's getting a little catty. And Strickland was, I wouldn't say in his response very catty, he didn't have a lot of attitude in his response. I thought he was actually pretty measured in his response clip, aside from calling Nicksick, an influencer. Oh, he wants to be a podcaster now. I didn't know he was talking about this. I mean, or not, he wasn't talking about this specifically, but like, I didn't know that like Nicksick also had this. I mean, I kind of knew that he had like some kind of content thing, but I guess I thought Sean was just referring to the Ariel interview. I guess he might have been referring to Nicksick doing this kind of stuff as well on his own channel here. So Sean, you know, kind of took a little bit of a jab at him on the video response, but I think that the more catty thing that Sean did was on his Facebook page, which I'm fairly certain is his official Facebook page. He basically, like in no uncertain terms, not basically, he literally said, your services are no longer needed when he posted the clip of himself doing his response. So not really catty, but like kind of a slight jab. You could tell that he was a little bit upset, more upset than he was in that clip that he posted. So Nicksick, you know, to go through the full timeline here, Sean loses the fight. Apparently they don't talk. Like they didn't have, I guess maybe they had some kind of like conversation or, you know, just, hey, you know, tough fight, whatever, but didn't have like a heart to heart or anything after the fight. Nicksick goes on Ariel, says his piece. Actually, first before that, Dean Thomas went on Ariel. This is also around the same time that Bilal Muhammad and Luke Rockhold are talking shit. But Dean Thomas goes on Ariel. Nicksick goes on Ariel thereafter. Sean feels like he's getting attacked from all sides. Sean responds, and now this is the response to the response. So, like, Nicksick, I mean, this is starting to get into petty territory, I would say here. I mean, like, the fact that this was even public to begin with is a little bit weird, right? I mean, like, you don't generally hearing coaches, like, bad-mouthing their clients, which is what these fighters are at the end of the day, right? You know, it's a employee-employer relationship here to an extent. You generally don't hear the coaches going out of their way to be this outwardly critical of their fighters. Generally, this type of criticism would be stuff that you'd have a heart-to-heart conversation about behind the scenes. But Nicksick almost went scorched earth from the beginning. And the one thing that you'll hear, and I'm going to play the intro here in a second, you'll hear him talking about the dogpiling aspect of it and him saying, oh, how was I dogpiling? It's like, no, bro, you weren't necessarily the one that made it a dogpile, but you were one of the layers of the dogpile, because this was certainly a dogpiling situation. He even talked about that in the comments of the latest Yama episode, which if you have not seen it on the channel, what are you doing? Latest Yama episode has like 12 views. This is unacceptable, people. Go out, watch the Yama episode, give it a like, and you know, you can do that after this. I watched some of the pod with Nicksick, but didn't finish it. I also found it strange that he had to explain himself on why he was on Ariel's pod and what he said. Yeah, exactly. This is why I wanted to check this out. Because I'm like, why are you doing this? This seems like overkill on top of something that was already overkill. You know what I mean? It's a very odd situation that he's even doing this in the first place. So let's start playing some of this. Again, talk any MMA related stuff, talk any non-MMA related stuff, whatever. We can talk about anything that you want. But I wanted to get into this a little bit more casual tonight because this is, like I said, day 4 in a row of streaming. And I don't know, I'm just having fun with it this week. I've been enjoying it. I like hanging out with you guys. So let's start her up.
I was probably the best on him compared to Dean Thomas, right? Bilal Muhammad, like these guys were going after him. And they're, oh, you're piling on. No, I'm being open and honest to the constructive criticism that we all should take on.
I mean, okay, and I don't want to, like, maybe I shouldn't say it all in the intro, but, like, constructive criticism, bro, you literally said, oh, well, if Sean wants to just fight for money, then that's what's up. Just tell us, because I only want to coach champions. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily constructive criticism, but...
Talked to DC. I talked to Bisbee. I talked to Tom Aspinall. What do they all have in common?
World champs.
What do they all have in common? They're not Sean Strickland. What do they all have in common? They have literally nothing to do with the situation, is what they all have in common. Why are you talking to all these other people about this? Like, Nicksick is just like... He's literally like a chick who's in a relationship with someone and like not feeling the relationship and just starts spilling the relationship business to the entire world. Like, goes out on a YouTube channel and just like starts talking about this relationship out in the open. Like, yo, this is like stuff that probably should just be between y'all, you know? Why are you airing the dirty laundry, Eric Nicksick?
Every one of them. Yo, bro, I appreciate what you said because they knew what I'm trying to do. He
Who
texted
gives
me
a fuck?
and said the same thing. Night he posted his Instagram video.
Yeah.
Which, why wouldn't you just say that then? Like he literally texted me and said, "Hey man, everything you said was spot on.
Yeah.
Right? I know you're just trying to get the best out of me.
Yeah.
Then say that."
See, that's the other thing that I noticed in the intro is like, apparently it's like, oh, well, you know, he didn't have to come out and say the things that he said. So if he's going to go scorched earth, I guess I'm going to go even farther. But bro, you started it though, Eric Nicksick. And I want to make this clear up front as well as we finish up the intro here. Eric Nicksick is one of my favorite coaches. Like, I respect Nicksick and his camp a lot. Like, the Elite XC guys, I mean, like that's you know, I mean, there are Elite XC. That's here in town. The Extreme Couture guys. Sorry, the XC folk out there in Vegas. I mean, this is like a world-class facility. Who, you know, a lot of great fighters are fighting out of there. A lot of great coaches are coaching out of there. Like, Nicksick runs a tight ship, so to see the captain of the ship essentially steering it into the rocks with one of his students, that's what's making this so fascinating to me. Like, before this, I mean, like, honestly, like, to be perfectly honest, I really, like, if you had asked me who my favorite coach is currently, I probably would have said Eric Nicksick. I mean, like, and I don't know if this necessarily changes that aspect of it. It's just weird. You know what I mean? It's just odd. So we're going to get into it a little bit more here. Watch it on your TV, so it won't be in the chat much, but hey, thank you very much, Chase. Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you on the pod yesterday. Enjoy your pro wrestling. Calvin is 7-7 in his UFC career, and his last 4 in a row. And has lost his last 4 in a row. Do you think he is going with PFL or GFL? I don't think. We talked about this on the podcast yesterday. I don't think that he should be cut based on his last performance, but 4 in a row is tough. That's a tough hill to climb back from. I think what should, and also the fact, I think the other aspect of it that makes it really tough for him is that he lost to a prospect now, essentially. I mean, Zalal is not necessarily like a contender series guy, but you know, he was unranked. He's a newer guy. I mean, like, he's just now coming into his own as a potentially elite fighter. So that does not work in Calvin's favor. I would like him to get one more fight in the UFC. I'd like to see him fight like another maybe kind of unranked dude that's just bubbling on the surface kind of thing. You know, I'm not saying that he needs to have like a favorable matchup. I'd like him to get a tough matchup, but like, I'd like to see him fight like a dude like Vince Morales. We were talking about Vince Morales yesterday, of course, as well. He fought on the card also last weekend. And Vince Morales showed a lot of heart in his defeat. So, like, you know, I don't know. Are they the same weight? I don't know if they fight at the same weight or not. But like, not necessarily Morales himself, but a guy like Vince Morales, a dude who goes into the fight. He's a dog. He put on a really good show. Lost a fight to a contender series guy. That's not a good look for him either, but it was a good performance. I'd like to see Calvin get one more shot before exploring other options. And if he does end up losing another fight, then yeah, it definitely is time for him to get cut. Does he go to PFL or GFL? I mean, if he wants to, I would think he'd probably have a lot more potential to win there. I don't know. It's a tough call. It's really going to come down to what he wants to do, but 4 in a row never looks good. Bro's also 36. I mean, 36 is, yeah, getting a little bit older, but it's, I mean, that's still fighting age. I mean, he could still catch wins. I mean, he could still catch bodies. It really depends on if he still has the capacity to go out there and take the fight to a person for like the entirety of it. Because that was my big note, was that he, to me, was not adjusting to Zalal's style quick enough. everybody's saying, definitely Chase. I go back and listen to that segment of the podcast. I when I listened back to the podcast today, I was like, I really enjoyed that, because me and Chase had different opinions about that. So I think it was a good like back and forth discussion about like, our opposing viewpoints of it, and Chase was rather upset about Zalal's performance, saying what a bum he was for kind of being an evasive fighter. And what I was saying is that I thought it was a high fight IQ strategy against a dangerous striker like Kattar, and really the impetus is on Kattar to go out and adjust to what you're getting back from your opponent. So if he doesn't have that capacity to like get with the program quicker, then he's going to probably need to fight in like a GFL, slower guys, older guys. That might work out for him. PFL tournament might be okay for him too, but you start getting up into the higher skill levels of that, he might have problems there too. I don't want to dog on him too hard, but like if you look at those last 4 losses, some of them are better than others, and none of them are great. You know what I mean? Zalal probably being the worst of them, but Aljo, Arnold Allen, and I forget who the other one was. I know that he lost to Renato Moicano, but I think that was earlier. Like, I don't remember his record off the top of my head, but I mean, either way, these are, like all the guys that he's lost to, as far as I can tell, are decent fighters, like, good names. I mean, the Moicano loss ages well, of course. Aljo's a former champion. Arnold Allen's still in the equation, possibly as a contender. Zalal, I think, is somebody who's going to be successful going forward personally. So, these are not bad losses, but you need to see him lose against somebody who's just like middle of the road. And if he does lose to that, then yeah, it's time to move on. And then he's got to reevaluate. Oh, a split decision loss to Josh Emmett. There you go. So, I mean, that kind of ages decently as well, too. I mean, Josh Emmett and him, I would have, before this most recent loss, kind of put on the same level to an extent, 2 powerful strikers that have their own set of losses, so we'll see. Is it time to hang it up? That's really going to be more on him. I do think that he could have success elsewhere, but time will tell if what he wants to do. That's really what it all comes down to. It's like, if you want to keep out there and keep going, you want to, potentially take more losses, you want to keep fighting because you love fighting, whatever your rationale is for going forward, or your propensity to walk through the fire repeatedly, even if you're going to be banging your head against the wall, that just comes down to the type of person that he is. And I am not familiar enough with Calvin as an individual enough to know where his head is at with that. But 4 losses in a row, man, that never feels good. I can guarantee you that, regardless of ever having fought before. Even Tony, who would go on to lose 7 in a row, those first 4 hurt pretty bad. 1 loss is bad enough, 4 in a row. Yeah, I would think that he's probably questioning himself a little bit at this point.
Yeah.
Generic intro music.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Verse Us with Eric Nicksick. He is Eric Nicksick. I am Randy Fainrich, and this is Verse
Randy
Us.
Fainrich with the good hair.
Today,
look at that head of hair.
I think we have some stuff to talk about. I think we have some stuff to.
Bro is giving Fabiano a run for his money.
And the Chiefs and the Super Bowl. That's exactly what it is. So we wanted to do this. Obviously, been a crazy couple weeks for you.
Yeah.
Coming off, a title fight. Obviously, a fight last night that we'll get to with Edmund Shabazian.
Oh, yeah, he was coaching Edmund, wasn't he?
And the biggest thing, obviously, the interview with Ariel Helwani.
Congratulations
the
to
kind
Edmund.
of fallout, if you will, from UFC 312. Sean and all of that stuff, which we'll touch on. But first and foremost, before we get into any of that, how you feeling? I feel like you've been around the world and back twice.
Yeah, man, I'm back. I actually feel pretty good. Like Thursday, Friday of this week, I started to get back in the mode. Like okay, accepted kind of everything that happened. The fallout. I don't even consider it a fallout. I think it's just something I needed. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Like, he's talking like he took this whole thing very hard, Like, I mean, I get, I can understand that. I'm not trying to say that he's wrong for feeling that way, but it's like, he feels the loss as a coach. That is a much different feeling than being the actual fighter. So in having that feeling within him, I still don't think that he necessarily handled everything correctly in all of this, Tony was an interim champ on a 12-fight win streak. That's a big difference. Yeah, no, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, I'm not trying to compare their careers. I'm just talking about taking losses in succession, taking back-to-back losses. That's more of what I meant. I certainly don't want to see Calvin Kattar go on a 7-fight losing streak. That would be really bad. But yeah, Nicksick is... it seems like he took all of this to heart. He had to do some soul searching. He had to do some processing here,
I made a calculated mistake. We'll talk about that, and kind of my thought process in what went on. But again, it was something I felt like I really needed, because what it did.
Talk about the Ariel interview.
A lot about people.
Mm-hmm.
It made me learn about
interesting
what I need to do better. There was a lot, bro. Mm-hmm. There was a lot.
He baited the trap, He put the Ariel interview out just to see what Sean was going to do. Let's see how this person responds to me not doing the right thing.
And dude, I came out of this going, okay, here's where I can be a better person, a better coach, a better friend, a better mentor, Definitely. All these other things. But it also kind of showed me who's actually in my corner,
And
you see who your real friends are when you do something stupid. To be fair, Sean didn't pay attention to anything Nicksick was telling him in the corner. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of true. It's a hard thing to say with that, because on the one hand, you're, from the outward appearance, you're correct, right? I mean, he's telling him to do certain things. He's quite clearly not doing those things. On the other hand, Nicksick had to know that Sean has a certain style of fighting going into this. I mean, we've seen the same style of fighting from Sean multiple fights in a row at this point. So him, I guess what I'm trying to say is that a zebra can't change its stripes kind of thing, but that doesn't make it right on Sean's part either, right? I mean, because that's the whole thing. The reason that the whole world is critical of Sean's performance is because of the lack of adjustment, right? It's not the style in and of itself, because the style was the same style that beat Israel Adesanya. It's the fact that when you're seeing something clearly in what your opponent is doing and you're not responding. I mean, this is a similar conversation to what we were just having here with Calvin and Zalal. You're seeing what your opponent is doing. You're not changing anything about what you do. This is really, if you go back on the last week's Fights podcast, what I had said was that I thought that the fact that Sean was even getting the rematch, even with the first fight being close, if he didn't adjust anything that he did in the first fight, he wasn't going to win this fight. I had said, is he going to try for a takedown? Is he going to try any sort of level changing, even with his striking? I mean, aside from the teeps, where's the level changing with the punches? Where's the body rips? I mean, he might have had one or two in there, or, whatever. He might have had a couple. I'm not trying to say it was a completely headhunting affair, but you know what I'm saying here. I mean, we all saw the performance. So I've actually heard analyses from certain people saying that they thought that Sean might have won the fight based on the style that he was using. So maybe there's an alternate reality that I'm not even aware of when it comes to how the fight is perceived. Maybe Sean in his own mind thought that what he was doing was enough and that Nicksick didn't need to be listened to as much. I don't know what all of the dynamics that go into it are. All I know is that whatever the case in the cage is, and however angry you feel about it as a coach, the instinct should never be to go on one of, if not the largest MMA platforms on the planet and really drag your student through the coals. I mean, drag him through the mud. He raked him over the coals and dragged him through the mud. It was really, I mean, the thing about the Ariel interview is that, like, I had to clip it for the Yama episode, so I listened to it in pieces, and I kind of paused it at points to try to get the clip that I wanted. And as you go through it, it really just gets worse and worse and worse. It kind of snowballs with what he's saying. It's like, and Ariel, classic weasel Ariel, as always, is really baiting him in with this stuff. It's like, it didn't seem like he was listening to you. Do you feel that that's the case? Are you thinking that he wasn't really that guy ever? That he's really like asking very leading and pointed questions throughout the entire thing. So Eric played right into his hand. So, I mean, either way, regardless of how Strickland conducted himself in the fight, I just don't think that his response was correct. And then him saying, oh, well, I guess I know who my real friends are. Bro, you started it, though. You can't be mad at Strickland for responding to you. Strickland wouldn't have said anything in the first place. He's like, oh, I know who my real friends are now. Well, I mean, you were the bad friend first. So I guess Sean also knows who his real friends are now. You feel me? 1-2 Philly. Yeah, 1-2 is Philly shells and teep kicks. Exactly. I think I described it as teep jab, occasional swing Strickland. You had money on Strickland, and I'm going to tell you right now, he definitely did not win that fight. What rounds did he win? I don't know. Talk to Vampiric Legs about that shit, dude. Shout out to Vampiric Legs. That guy's funny.
And these situations always will.
Yeah, 100%.
Always will. So yeah, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's get into it. We'll start with fight week in general. Obviously, you traveled to Australia a little earlier than just fight week to kind of get acclimated and everything. But let's talk about fight week. I mean, how was it from the moment you guys checked in on that Tuesday to fight night? Kind of take us through the week. How was Sean feeling? How were you guys doing? How was it?
Well, obviously everybody kind of saw the staph infection, right? That he had. So,
oh yeah,
this poor guy's on antibiotics for like the last, 10 days of camp. Something that I was kind of blindsided by. I didn't know that he had staph. Like he had been covering it. So it wasn't until like the second or maybe the last spar, which is with Johnny Eblin, and I'm like, what's up with the like? I thought it was like the physio tape for his shoulder. Oh, and I was like, and they're like, and then Lance is like, no, he's got staph. I'm like,
that's bad. I mean, look, regardless of what Nicksick did with the interview, like Sean really should have disclosed that. That's dangerous to the other fighters around him and his coaches. Staph can be extremely contagious. I mean, like, that's why it's like really, really, really bad when there's a staph outbreak in hospitals, is because of how contagious that stuff is. So that's not cool of Strickland to be doing that. You should never hide having staph infection. That's one of the main reasons that you don't fight with staph infection. I was honestly kind of surprised he was able to get cleared for the fight. Antibiotics or not, you saw the volcano-sized hole in his arm. I mean, you just saw the image just there. That's late stage healed up version of that, and it looked terrible.
Like, what?
Yeah,
man, dude,
what
this shit
indeed?
was gnarly. So he had just gotten off of antibiotics, and I could kind of tell, like, dude, it nukes you, bro. Like, I mean, anybody's been on antibiotics and then is trying to spar.
That's true too. Not only does staph itself affect the your stamina and your cardio, but the antibiotics also zap you. So, I mean, that's a 1-2 punch right there. You've got the staph, which is potentially contagious to other people around you. You've got the cardio depletion from the infection itself and the cardio depletion from the antibiotics, potentially. I mean, antibiotics don't always affect everybody the same way, but it certainly can't help, I agree staph is bad, but bro had a world title fight. I mean, I get that aspect of it. I still don't like it just because it puts other people at risk. It puts other people in danger. Like, Dricus was at risk in that situation. I mean, probably at the stage that it was at, it wasn't contagious anymore. I'm sure the antibiotics had zapped it, and that was just a residual, welt from it. But either way, I mean, to have something like that, you could see the hole in it. I mean, that's still, even if that's scabbed over and covered by fresh skin, it's too close for comfort to me. I mean, it makes me uncomfortable for the other fighter, but takes two to tango. Dricus probably, I assume, we all saw it. So, I mean, Dricus knew the deal. He's not going to not defend his belt. So I guess it just is what it is. But I mean, really, I'm talking more about the early stages, what he's talking about here, where it's bro's covering it up with a bandage or whatever he was doing during the training sessions. It's like, dude, you really should have disclosed that to your team. I mean, that's not something that you hide from the people that you're closest to.
Fucking Johnny Eblin, who's incredible, 5'5". So that's
Johnny Eblin, Mr. OnlyFans simp. Y'all know the story of Johnny Eblin with the OnlyFans model? Johnny Eblin is, I don't know if they're still together, but for a while, Johnny Eblin was dating an OnlyFans model. Big old booty. This chick was fucking stacked in the back. But she literally said that if Johnny Eblin did not win his fights and continue to make money, that she was going to dump him. So you can pretty much tell the type of relationship he was in with a girl like that. Much power to him. Much love to the happy couple.
That's where I was like, oh, so he had a few days in between the last spar to the travel to kind of get his body back normal. We go to hop on the plane. Sean was flying to LA. We were flying to Frisco. Okay. For whatever reason, our flights were all different. So Sean got on his flight to LA and made it to Sydney the day he was supposed to. Myself, Danny, Lance, Cody Steele, and then his training partner, William Tackett.
I didn't know Cody Steele was out of there.
We're all on the same flight.
That's
we go
cool.
to Frisco. Our plane from Vegas to Frisco is delayed 4 times. We missed the connection. We literally get on the plane. We're on the plane sitting there, and they're like, flat tire, get off, blah, 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 blah. So we're not going to make the Frisco to Sydney flight. So we get postponed an extra day, pack up, do it all over again the next day, finally get out to Sydney. So, everything was good, man. Everything was was smooth out there. Sean got a spar Kyle Bahalio on Tuesday.
Okay.
So kind of kept the same schedule that we would with pro practice. Mm-hmm. Sparred Kyle 5'5s. And dude, looked great.
The week of the fight.
The week of the fight. And it's
and that's typical Sean.
Oh
though,
yeah,
right?
Sean's
typical.
always sparring.
Yeah, that's true. Sean Strickland is a spar fanatic. I wonder if that helps or hurts in the big show, I think that they had talked about Hamzat reducing his amount of hard sparring because it was affecting his late stage fighting abilities when, later rounds. I think that was something that I had heard, that they adjusted his sparring regimen because he's one of those guys that, is in the gym twice a day kind of thing. And, I think that they had reeled it back intentionally because he was going too hard. Question, is it a valid excuse to refuse a fight as a champion due to your opponent having staph, or would the UFC be pissed and probably strip him? That's a great question. That is a great question. I would think that I think that the answer is it is valid, at least in my opinion. I think that that's more of an opinion-based thing. And the answer to the stripping depends on the champion. If you recall, Dricus was originally supposed to fight Israel Adesanya for the belt after he beat Rob Whittaker and did not get that opportunity because he hurt his foot and said, hey, I'm not going to fight on a sprained ankle or whatever it was, a fracture in his foot, whatever it was that the injury was. He was like, I need recovery time. I need to heal up. And the organization was extremely upset by that, which I thought was bullshit. Dana came out in the, during a press conference and was like, oh, well, you know how I feel about guys that turn down title fights. It's like, I mean, what the fuck? You want this guy you're literally asking the guy to go out there and fight injured. He even said, he's like, oh, I'm never going to ask anybody to fight injured. It's like, yes, you fucking are. You literally are doing that. I remember very vividly being like, you are bullshitting right now, Dana. And I guarantee you that if that was a different champion that you liked more, you would not be having the same conversation. John Jones can have a hangnail and not fight. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, like, it really is a case-by-case basis when it comes to that, I believe. But as far as the validity of it, I would say so. I mean, shit. You have to realize, like, how bad staff can be. I mean, in the Discord, somebody just posted it. Actually, I think it was Toby. Shout out to Pube. He posted the picture. Kevin Randleman, rest his soul, great fighter, great person, not with us any longer. But Kevin Randleman had a gaping hole in his armpit where you could see into his flesh through the hole. I mean, the hole was the size, larger than a golf ball. And there were two of them, actually. One was probably about the size of maybe like a walnut. And the other one, I mean, it's hard to even draw a comparison. Larger than a golf ball, smaller than a tennis ball, but like a large hole in his skin from staph infection. I mean, staph can be really, really bad. So I would think it's valid. Personally, like, hey, man, I mean, I'm risking a lot more than just the belt if I go out there and fight this way, or fight a person who's in this condition. The organization, they're cutthroat, dude. I mean, that's going to be a different story. I would hope that someone on the medical staff would talk some sense into Dana over something like that, but you know how it goes in the UFC. The boss is the boss.
He's always doing that. And that was like a lot of the main concern was because Eblen couldn't make it out to the fight. So like, who were we going to use and spar? And dude, Kyle has been training with us back from the Contender Series fights. So he's been like a part of the gym quasi, like he's a fighting nerds guy, but like he comes out and trains with us all the time.
Right.
So
that's cool.
He was like, yo, coach, like I got you guys. Like you guys have helped me a ton. Let me repay you guys. And so he was out there and Sean and Kyle did 5.5s, right? Which was great to see because it's like, okay, Sean's not like, he's not hindering on the antibiotics anymore. Like you can see that his body's, was responding well.
Right.
And then he did 5-minute round pads with Danny Tuesday. So it was like, oh, okay, that was very promising as far as like how his cardio output was going to be.
Right.
So it was good. And then the dude, like Sean is pretty easy all fight week long. It's like, hey, I'm going to do one workout, and he just stays in his room, doesn't do much of anything. They went and saw like sightseed and like went to like some of the beaches and some stuff like that. But
they did King of the Hill on a deck, on a pier deck.
Yeah, that was like,
bro, I was watching that. I literally like in my head, I'm like, I bet Eric's fucking cringing at
I don't even go, bro. Like I don't even want to see any of that shit.
Please don't get hurt.
I don't want to see any of that shit. So
yeah, that is kind of wild from a coach's perspective. Bro, come on, man. All you have to do is fucking catch your foot on something in the water or on your way down, and our hopes and dreams are dashed on the rocks. Kevin still fought that way like a fucking legend. Hell yeah, he did. Kevin Randleman is like, that's someone I hold in great esteem. Really very sad that he came up recently because the anniversary of his passing was like last week or so something within the last couple of days, and I reposted a picture of him on Instagram for that exact reason. He was a great person. He's one of those guys that that no one ever had anything bad to say about him. Very charitable and good to be around in the gym. Gracious to other fighters and stuff. So yeah, really an unfortunate loss in Kevin Randleman.
Yeah. So yeah, fight week I thought was smooth. He did a really good job with his weight cut. Weight cuts are weight cuts.
Yeah.
But he just sits there and just gets it done and, fucking mans up and made weight. So everything was good as far as I could see fight week. It was a typical Sean fight week. He's kind of a recluse, stays in his room. Myself, Danny, and Lance hang out all fight week long, and that was that.
Awesome.
I mean, aside from the King of the Hill, that sounds like exactly what you want in a fighter, And I believe that of Sean. Like, Sean is a complex character in a lot of ways. Like all of the persona that he puts on, I really think is very much a mask, masking a much more sensitive individual. And I'm not just talking about him crying on the Theo Vaughn podcast or any of that kind of stuff. I think that he's a lot more introspective than he lets on, and I think he overcompensates for his nature by being the character that he's created for himself. That's my perception of Sean. I've always kind of wanted to do a psychological breakdown video on Sean. I might still do that at some point, but I digress. If Strickland would have pulled out, then who do you think would have replaced him? Khamzat, could he even cut to 185 in that amount of time? That's a great question. Actually, did they have a backup fighter for that fight? I don't know if anybody actually weighed in for that. Hold on, let me see. I guess I can do it on here. I don't know why I'm going to my phone for that. UFC 312. Chael Sonnen. I mean, I guess they're saying that Chael thought that Khamzat would be the backup fighter, but that was from a while back. UFC 312 champion bouts, not expected to have any backup fighters. So I guess, I mean, maybe they would have just canceled the fights. Maybe they just would have been canceled. And Khamzat being able to make that weight in that amount of time, I would almost say definitely not. We know that Khamzat has weight cutting issues and health issues to begin with. That's one of the biggest concerns that I think a lot of people, including myself, have about Khamzat holding the belt in the first place. Is Khamzat going to be healthy enough to be an active champion? And I mean, you know, it sounds like an unfair criticism or an unfair speculation, but we know what's happened to him in the past. We know what the situation has been with him before. This guy gets food poisoning. This guy gets, his own infections and things like that. You saw that picture of him from the hospital with his face all puffy and bloated. I mean, he looked in really bad shape in some of those pictures. So, I mean, I don't want to speculate as far as if that'll happen again. Hopefully it wouldn't, but it just seems like he is prone to illness, and that would be pretty bad if you're holding the belt and everybody has to worry about whether or not you're going to be healthy enough for your next fight. Just from a fan perspective, obviously I hope the best for him, health-wise.
So everything was good. He makes weight, obviously. The stuff starts coming out about the staff from the press conference because he wore that sleeveless shirt. I think it was. Might not have been the best idea.
I think it was from the photos, though.
Right.
When he ended up doing the photos, right?
Was it?
So hold on. You can see. Can you see my cursor? Yeah, you can see my cursor on screen. Look at the hole. Look at the hole in the center of that. Like I was saying, even if there's fresh skin covering that indentation there, that is not good. That's bad news bears right there. Maybe jump Cannonier to fight for the title. He would definitely have said yes and made weight. I mean, as a Cannonier fan, I certainly would have loved that. As a paying member of the fight-consuming public in Sydney, Australia, I don't know. You know what I mean? After seeing Cannonier do what he did last weekend, maybe he would have given him a run for his money. Who knows? But that is the same Cannonier that lost to Kaio. In fact, honestly, hearing that Kaio was training and helping him spar, if Kaio could have made the weight, then that might not have been a bad look right there. You know? Kaio coming off a number of impressive wins. That fight with Cannonier was one of my favorite fights of last year. That was a brawl. That was a crazy hard fight. Yeah, maybe Kaio could have done it. I mean, I think that the issue as well is that it was in Sydney. I mean, half of the active fighters are going to be on the other side of the world. I mean, who's the next in line in Sydney? What, you're going to call Rob Whittaker coming off of a loss? Coming off of multiple losses, coming off of a loss to the guy that should be in there instead of Sean Strickland, and the guy who's holding the belt. Yeah, that would have been a tricky pickle.
UFC photos.
Yeah, the UFC photos,
okay.
yeah, like his arm crossed, and you just see this fucking.
Oh, I thought it was the press conference.
Yeah, but that doesn't help. But I mean, at that point,
yeah.
I think it was kind of already coming out about it. And to be fair, bro, like, I'm not in his body. I don't know how he felt. But like people were asking, was like did that affect his performance? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think it helps.
Yeah, sure.
I certainly don't think it helps.
Definitely.
Right.
But at that point, I felt like he was kind of getting over it.
Yeah. Okay. So fight night comes around. You guys do the shakeout in the morning. Like, did you do a shakeout or no?
No shakeout. Because I think we had to check in it by 1.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's right. You're fighting at like 8 a.m. over there. First fight.
Yeah, well, we fought at like the first fight.
First fight's at like 8 or 9 a.m. or whatever. Okay, cool. So no shakeout, whatever. But how was he in the locker room? Like, I know you've talked before, like, again, the Izzy fight where maybe you saw him not rattled, but a little like unsure.
Of course.
So how was he on that night?
Similar.
Yeah.
Similar. I think he gets like that. The thing I noticed the most difference wise was like, I wish we would have used Alex Pereira more in the back as far as like just getting his eyes sharp and ready to go. Danny did a great job on the pads. And again, like the warm up.
Oh, there you go. There's the fight. Turn it into a super fight on the spot. Dricus doesn't need to cut weight. Moves up, fights Alex. Even though Ankalaev is in the wings. Like, what the fuck? Could you imagine if that happened? Could you imagine if Ankalaev is sitting there at home having to see Dricus get the call up to fight Alex on short notice, and his fight ends up getting moved again? Like he gets sidelined yet again after already getting sidelined by Khalil Roundtree. Bro would have been pulling his beard hair out. But, this is a good point, though, that I didn't mention it in the Yam episode, but I had a joke about it, and I ended up cutting it out because I didn't like the joke enough. But, like, Alex Pereira was in his corner for this. Like, where was Alex as far as all of this camp went? How much did Alex actually contribute to any of this? They're such good friends. They're former foes turned friends, like Alex always likes to do. Alex is very weird that way. Like, he likes to go out and fight people and then befriend them afterwards. It's kind of strange, but it is his deal. And yeah, I mean, like, you saw him in the corner just doing the Chama stare. Like, did he actually contribute anything to this camp? I mean, I got to assume, yeah, right? I mean, like, in the sparring. Did he have Plinio Cruz with him, I wonder? Like, was Plinio Cruz in the gym translating what he wanted to say, like, in training camp? That must be an awkward situation. I wonder about that with a lot of fighters. Like, when you hear about, like, some of the Chinese fighters that train with Uriah Faber, they're like, you got a lot of international fighters that come over, don't necessarily speak the language. I always wonder how the communication is with them. You think Alex would take that fight? Alex seems like he takes any fight. I mean, how many times have the memes gone around where it's like, oh, the event's about to go down, call Alex Pereira. Hey, we need you to fight in 2 weeks, Chama. So I don't know. I mean, he already wants the fight with Dricus, or at least is open to the fight with Dricus, because Dricus has been jawing at him for a while now. I mean, Dricus has been jawing at him since before 312. Dricus has been going after him, saying that he wants that fight. Dricus has been pretty vocal about the fact that he's willing to move up. Like, he's like, you don't have to move back down, dude. I don't want to give you any excuse. Like, I'll move up to light heavyweight for it. So, yeah, I mean, if Alex was there, I think that it would be very, like I don't think the UFC would want to do that. I don't think the UFC would do it, because if Alex fights Dricus, that's going to be a champ versus champ fight, and I think that they're going to want to milk that for all that it's worth. Like, they wouldn't do that on short notice because they wouldn't be able to get the promotion out of it. So I highly doubt they would have done that, but that would have been fucking wild if they had. DDP at 205 versus Alex. How do you think that goes? I think that Alex still takes that. I mean, Dricus is crafty. Dricus is unpredictable. Dricus is unorthodox. All the things that we know about Dricus. But at 205, with the power that Alex has, I mean, you know, maybe Dricus takes him down and gives him a little bit of a problem on the ground. But I think that Alex is savvy enough. I mean, I made an entire video on this channel asking if Alex is like a fake black belt or not. A lot of people saying that he is a fake black belt in the comments. Regardless of whether you think that he's a fake, quote unquote, fake black belt or not, he still is skilled enough to have been granted a belt by somebody. I mean, I gotta believe that he would be able to handle the takedowns and stuff like that. I mean, I feel like if Dricus took him down and he got kept down, that would only be like a once or twice max situation. Like, I don't think that Dricus would be able to continuously take him down over and over and over again to the point that it would sway the fight and Alex not be able to land a shot on him. I mean, even with Dricus's awkwardness, I think that Alex can get the timing down. Alex is a fighter that can adjust to the fight that he's being presented with.
Is kind of depicted on the fighter. It's not always need to be tailor-made or something that's like, oh, this is how we do it every time.
It's too late for strategy at that point, right?
Well, it's not even necessarily a strategy. It's almost a feel. Like, hey, how do you feel? Right? Like, and then like I just remember the difference between in the Paulo Costa fight, he was in the back damn near sparring Eblen, but it was more about his defense. Like him parrying, slipping, getting his head off line, countering. The timing just felt better in the back when he was had Johnny back there, rather than the pads where he was just kind of he was going through the motions on the pads. He warmed up, but that's to him. Like, how do you feel? I feel good. Do you want to spar a little bit with Alex? Nope, I'm good. So, you know, it was just kind of that moment, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. And so, you know, I think a lot of people want to hear from you about the fight in general and kind of breaking it down, but the fight starts and kind of, you know, just take us through all 5 rounds, like from your vantage point.
Oh my God. Are we really going to go through all 5 rounds?
Round 1, in my head, I was like, is he flat or is he collecting data? And I didn't, like, there was a part of me that was like, oh, do I need to like get on him? Or we just kind of, I didn't want to lose rounds though, like narrowly lose rounds.
Because of that first fight.
Because of the first fight. So I was like,
That is a good point in all of this. Is that like the first fight is the context for this fight. So I can see Nicksick's viewpoint on this. If he's downloading information, it's still from a coach's perspective, like a precarious situation, because I understand what he's saying. It's like the first fight was so close that this is not the fight to download information in. So I can understand where he's finding frustration even in round 1 because of that.
Giving 1 round away is in the end of the world when it comes to a 5-rounder.
Yeah.
But it's also like how close the first fight was really worried me in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what I said to him after round 1 was like, hey, are you good? You getting your data? Like, we collecting data or whatever. And he's like, yeah, just kind of get it. And I'm like, okay, because he is that guy. Like, he's that guy. And then when round 2 didn't really go our way either, that's when I was like, okay, we need round 3.
Yeah.
Round 3 is the swing round. We have to win this round because now we don't have the type of offense that's going to be a come from behind victory.
Right.
We just don't. We don't. So that's what I was starting to get concerned about was like, hey, we got to do something now in 3.
Yeah. Are you and Danny, and who's the other guys in the corner?
Lance and then Alex.
Are you? Oh, that's right, Pereira. Are you guys talking?
Yeah, Alex, who did nothing in the corner
during the rounds. Like, hey, what the fuck is happening here? Like,
sure. I mean, all of us were kind of like we just needed more output.
Yeah,
that's what we were kind of alluding to.
Yeah,
Dricus did exactly what he needed to do.
Yeah,
right. Like, he didn't have to force a whole lot. He was just more active. Mm-hmm. His activity level was more.
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. Like, Dricus didn't need to pull a rabbit out of his hat. He just responded to the fight that he was presented with, and it was enough. Also, didn't Strickland have a broken arm, or are you tripping? He did say that he had, Yeah, that he had a fracture in his arm that he went down to Colombia to get stem cells for. So that could have still been a slight factor. In the response video, he did say that the arm was fully healed by the time the fight took place. So he himself said that he was okay, but I guess that does, it is a factor in the mix. That does play a part in some capacity, whether or not it was a big part or a small part. Yeah, that was something. And he also said that the camp itself was not great. He said that he felt really off throughout all of the camp. So, I mean, whether that meant the arm, whether that meant the staph infection, whether that meant mentally, whatever was going into the set of circumstances that made him feel off doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because what matters is that he was not feeling 100%. Does that justify any of this? That's up to your own interpretation, but that is the set of circumstances that he claims that he was working with.
Which is usually Sean. Mm-hmm. Sean's activity level is usually more. Mm-hmm. So even like Alex was saying, he's got to start. He's got to lead it, right? And we were saying the same thing, like, hey, be first and be third, and we're going to win the volume count. What's up, guys? Thank you for watching the show. I appreciate all the comments, all the love,
break.
all the support. But if there's anything we can do better,
he really is an influencer.
You want to see coming on, let us know. Put it in the comments. Tell us what we can do. Now, back to the show.
Oh, man. Nicksick, the YouTube professional over here. Wow. I guess the stuff Sean was saying might not be as untrue as once thought. Like I said, I thought he was just referring to the Ariel interview. He's talking about all of this too. I did not realize that Mr. Nicksick was going all out. I didn't know that he had like a whole podcast studio set up over here. He's got the whole deal. He's got the boom arm. He's got, a nice microphone there. What kind of microphone that is? Pod mic. I wonder who makes that. But he's got the wood panel slats and everything. He's got the whole 9 yards. And he's got the break. Man, he's got a pro editing team over here, Mr. Nicksick, going all in on the content. As a creator, I can't be mad at it. Mr. Rage Quit, how are you, sir? How's it going, brother? I was gonna hit you up. I got to DM you. We got to find out what day and time you're gonna be available. I want to do a wiki dive. I need to coordinate that with you. Strickland versus Cannonier 2, make it happen. Yeah, I'd be cool with that. I was saying Cannonier versus Izzy makes sense now too. Izzy on a multiple fight losing streak, Cannonier on a winning streak. This might be Cannonier's time to avenge that loss or those losses. Did he fight Izzy twice? Once or twice, but either way. 4 more hours of work, so soon time off. Hey, my man, that's what's up. Get through those 4 hours. I know how those last 4 hours feel, but stick it out and you are home free, my guy. Appreciate you. Yeah, well, if you got time off coming up, we'll definitely get a wiki dive in.
Mm-hmm. Drinkus did land a little bit, like maybe 1 or 2 good power shots within the rounds. But if we can accumulate more volume as first and third, then I think our end of it would have overtaken like the 1 or 2 good power shots he had. But again, that's debatable,
right?
To in comparison to the first fight, like we're walking a fucking slippery slope when it comes to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like we're just like, hey, we just need a little bit more output from you to make things happen.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, I guess we all saw, because they kept going back to you in the corner on camera, right?
Oh yeah, we all saw how frustrated he was.
And I feel like, from my perspective or the audience perspective, that's like a typical Sean corner. Like he's listening, but he's kind of just like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's
like he's never like, okay. He's always kind of like, yeah, got it. Yeah, got it. But did you guys see in between, like, were you able to feel like, oh, something's not right?
I talked to DC and DC was saying like how it felt like a typical Sean corner to me. Like he's just kind of,
that's what I'm saying. To me as the audience too, it kind of feel, because Sean never sits down. He never like really makes eye contact with either coach.
Yeah.
He's kind of just looking straight ahead, kind of watching his opponent or looking at the other side. And you guys are like, come on, blah, 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 this and that. That's kind of how it typically goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is very true. I actually got to give credit to this guy. He's navigating this conversation pretty well. You always wonder about the co-host and the person kind of leading the line of dialogue. And this guy is carrying the conversation pretty okay, as opposed to that Bear DeGidio guy over on the Jackson podcast. I don't mean to pile on that guy, but goddamn, that Bryce Mitchell episode was something else. Last 4 of 72 hours and 6 days. Damn, dude. Enough for you this round. I feel you, bro. I feel you on that. Yeah, get some rest, my man. Have a rest, and then we'll do the wiki dive.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it was much like difference than other times around, but I talked to DC, and DC was like, man, he didn't even like. It felt like he was like brushing you guys off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I didn't get that in the moment because it's always kind of like Sean anyway. But a lot of people had kind of mentioned that. He's like, well, he wasn't even taking in any of the information.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I guess you'd have to ask Sean that question. I didn't feel like that in the moment. I just, typical Sean corner, he's just kind of like in his own zone and moving around. But I mean, we're trying to give him something, right? Some information to help him in the fight.
Yeah. Yeah, the volume thing was pretty evident. I just looked up these, like, it looks like Dricus landed almost as many punches as Sean even threw. Which is great. 147 of 314 for Dricus to 128 of 163 for Sean. So when Sean threw, he was fucking landing.
Exactly. Exactly.
But he landed at almost 50% clip.
Yeah.
But it just looks like he just wasn't throwing enough volume. The nose break happens in 4.
Yeah, round 4.
So when that happens and he's back in the corner, what's like? Because obviously it's a go for broke type of scenario,
100%,
and that's not Sean. Like, he's not Pereira, right? He doesn't have that what did Shane Mosley call it, the act right?
The act right.
He doesn't have that act right. So, so like, what's the? I guess we heard you, but like, what are you thinking in that moment?
We got to try something.
Yeah.
I mean, fuck, man. Sean's a warrior. No one's taking that away from him. Like, that nose was fucked up, and blood is gushing out of his mouth. Yeah. Right. Like I've seen Brad break his nose, and when you break that nose, like the blood is going like through the sinuses, like out of your mouth, and it's hard to take on air. Like, you're just trying to survive.
That's why I had said when we all saw the nose break, I was like, God forbid he tries to blow out of his nose, because if you recall, that's exactly what ended the Cowboy Cerrone fight. Well, I mean, it was the orbital that got broken in his case, but you try to, like, in that situation when you're getting all clogged up in the sinuses and your face is swelling up and blood is going to a lot of places that blood is not supposed to go to, you blow out of your nose, you basically inflate your whole face like a balloon, even more so than it already is going to go when that type of thing happens. I thought Sean actually handled the nose break pretty well. He reset the nose himself, he realigned the bone, the kind of pushed the cartilage around a little bit, got the bone in place, and kept fighting on. So, as Nicksick is saying, he was certainly a warrior for that, but that is a very precarious situation to be in, and had he even in the slightest blown out of his nose, that would have been donezo. Rory knows, you ain't lying. You ain't lying, bro. You ain't lying. I mean, with Rory, though, it was like the nose goes and there is no more to be done. But shout out to my favorite fight of all time.
He's trying to fix his nose, and it's like, hey, man, just stay in the fight and let's get to the corner and let's see what we can do in the last 5 minutes. And it really came down to like, man, we got to try something. Yeah. Right? Like you don't want to see him take on more injury, right, or get hurt like even further, right, or get fucking knocked the fuck out or something like that, but at this point now we need a Hail Mary. And like you said, like, Sean doesn't have the offensive like firepower. He's not going to throw the Leon Edwards same side head kick. Mm-hmm. He could if he wanted to, or if he tried.
But that's not his game.
It's just not his game.
He's a volume puncher, overwhelm you type of guy.
So I think that's kind of what we were going into in round 5. Is like, dude, you're going to have to step outside your comfort zone and try something that maybe Dricus doesn't expect, and hope to God it lands.
Yeah. So obviously fight ends.
Yeah, I said, let's get to the, up until this point, everything that Nicksick is saying is perfectly fine. And I have no problem with any of that. How he felt about the fight, he is well within his right to feel that way. It's after the fight that the issues start to arise. So nice that we got all of this context, even though it's pretty much the exact same context that we had already gotten from the Ariel interview. But let's get to the meat and potatoes over here.
Victory for Dricus. When you guys go in the back, what's that conversation like? I'm sure they brought him to the hospital.
This I wanted to hear.
Yeah, we didn't really speak much about anything at the
and I figured that was the answer.
Took him to the hospital. KJ, his girl, went with them. We waited around, got some food. He came back, and he was bummed, right? Like he was bummed, and we all were bummed, and we were upset in the moment, and that was that. I mean, there wasn't like a whole lot to be said, to be honest.
Yeah, I expected that. I expected that they did not have like a full-on heart-to-heart after the fight. And understandably so. I mean, they didn't have to. But like, I didn't think it was like, hey, what happened kind of thing, which is, for that time, fine. But then to go on to Ariel before you do have a conversation, that's where the issues start to arise. Excuse me, how dare you? Best fight of all time is Kimbo versus Dada 5000. Absolutely true. How dare I indeed? Champ shit only in that one. How many times has Rory McDonald's heart stopped in the middle of a fight? Rory ain't got shit on Dada.
And fuck, we all hopped on the plane the next day. So, I mean, we had very minimal dialogue that day.
Damn. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say, I guess. But I was curious if, like, Sean was like, hey, I just didn't have it tonight, or if you guys had the conversation or anything like that.
Not at that moment.
Not at that moment.
No. He did have that conversation with some of the other, like, he mentioned it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't directly to me. Mm-hmm. So I kind of knew where his headspace was in that time. But, it wasn't directed, like, I didn't hear it, so I didn't want to make assumptions.
Yeah. And then, obviously you guys get back Monday. You watched the Super Bowl on the way back.
Yeah. Rigged it, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know how we're even able to do that, but Danny and I were able to download a VPN, get on DirecTV somehow, some way, and watch basically the second half of the Super Bowl on the airplane. And you would have thought we won the fucking Super Bowl.
That's wild.
We were able to get this
so happy.
Get us to work on the flight home.
That's pretty cool. I can't lie. Having to jump through as many hoops as I have to, as far as all the technological aspects of doing the stream goes, like everything that goes into it, between this stuff here where I'm at, over at Vitz King's place, like all the ways that I have to go through hoops to download videos and get information and watch old fights and all this kind of stuff that you have to go through. I'm always impressed when a plan comes together as far as like technology is concerned. So I actually give him some credit for being able to watch the Super Bowl on an airplane. Dada had 2 or 3 heart attacks in that fight. Let that sink in. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. That's what I was talking about. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy to think that he's the one that's still alive based on that. Obviously, I'm happy that he is alive. Not trying to imply anything there, but RIP, of course, to Kimbo. Florida legend, Kimbo Slice, by the way. Don't get it twisted.
So you get back Tuesday, you hop on Ariel, and I think anyone who watches Ariel or follows you knows, like, you go on pretty regularly, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, you're on there after wins and losses.
Well, yeah, but that's also part of why this was a little bit crazy, was that it wasn't that it was him going on Ariel and talking about it. It was that it was immediately afterwards. Because, I mean, think about it. Like, the fight was Saturday night, technically Sunday morning, I guess, as far as Sydney is concerned. They're flying back across the international date line, so let's say that they get back into town Monday. I guess that's what they just said here. Back in town on Monday. Tuesday, he's on the show. So we're talking quick fucking turnaround here. fight happens, he's on the show talking about it pretty immediately. That, I think, is a big part of why the eyebrows got raised for a lot of people.
So it's not like it's the first time you ever went on there after a loss, or you only go on after wins.
Sure.
But let's kind of get into that. Like, what was, I guess, how did that whole interview go for you? Like, it definitely seemed for me, someone who knows you, that you had like a little bit of agitation, or like, what I mean? You were a little revved up potentially.
Oh, yeah. Also, what's the over-under on him throwing Ariel under the bus right now? What's the we putting plus money on him throwing Ariel under the bus? I might take that dog.
And rightfully so, but let's just talk about the interview.
Well, I made a mistake by accepting the invitation to go on in the moment that at the timing of where I was at.
Yeah, exactly.
So
at least he's man enough to admit it.
Understand, like, you're coming off of 25 hours of travel.
Yeah.
A 19-hour time difference. I'm at the gym on Tuesday, half awake, right? I just should have said, "Hey man, not a good time."
Yeah.
Right? And that's where I fucked up. Should have never done it. The reason why, yes, you win, bro, it's like you're on this parade, right? I also feel like, hey, you lose, you should face the music too.
Definitely.
Right?
I mean, fair. I like I said, I give him credit for admitting that he was wrong to immediately jump on the show. And, it's fine that he feels that way to say, it's like, take your licks when they're deserved. I think that that's also admirable, but it's the way that you did it. I mean, and he did, even in the interview, take the partial blame himself. It's on me as a coaching staff, I believe were his exact words in that moment. So, he's not completely saying that he's like coming out of this smelling like roses or whatever, but I don't know if these justifications are stronger than what, the actions were.
Right? Like, hey man, we lost. Let's face it. What threw me for a loop was about 30 minutes before going on Ariel, Sean is at practice with us, and Sean tells me all these things about how he felt in the weeks leading up to the fight, yada, 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 his headspace.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very disappointing to hear where his headspace was and what his thought process was about being a champion or all these things. And that's personal. I should have known better, right?
Yeah.
I took that energy and had to process that while I go on Ariel.
Mm.
I fucked up.
All right.
So
hey,
17
give him credit
years
there.
of being in this game, I've always tried to be calculated and say what I needed to say and say it correctly.
Mm-hmm.
I take a lot of inspiration off of like Joe Mazzulla, Bill Belichick, guys that are in the highest regards of sports, Nick Saban, and how they handle media.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this
And
editing.
I made a miscalculation.
He's got an editing
in that
team
moment
for real.
in ever accepting to go on the show, right? Number two, my wording was piss poor. What I said was accurate about the fight was uninspiring. We all know Sean. That is not how Sean fights.
Mm-hmm.
What I said was...
I mean, it was it not, though? We all know the Sean that has been fighting that way lately. I don't think that it was very dramatically different from the way that he fought Paulo Costa. I don't think it was very dramatically different from the way he fought Izzy, to be perfectly honest. It was dramatically different from the way he fought Dricus the last time. But from what we've seen, it was kind of your standardized modern era Sean Strickland. That's what I say in the M episode. Like the guy that used to shout down Jack Marshman and TKO Abus has not been here for a while. So, I mean, I guess I can understand it to an extent when you were his coach for all of that time, but it didn't seem that out of left field. It was just a lower output version of the same version that we're getting now.
Is accurate. And am I to shoulder some of that blame? 100%. I said that as a staff. It's on us. Yeah. I've always said that.
Yeah.
But his output, his body language, his demeanor, all those things, it did not feel like Sean. And if anybody thinks that I should have fucking lied to cover, I'm not a good coach.
Yeah.
That's a yes man.
Yeah.
And I won't be that.
Yeah, no, you just shouldn't have done it. That's it. I don't think that... has there been anybody out there who said Nicksick needed to lie? Like, who said that? No one said that. I mean, what person? Show me the person. Present me that straw man. Because that's what it's sounding like it is.
100%.
So if anybody's upset that I was a little too harsh on Sean fucking Strickland, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Well, I guess there is kind of a decent point in there, because Sean shoot from the hip Strickland calling other people weak men. You know, you remember that exchange with Sean and the Canadian reporter talking about having an LGBT child, and Sean saying that if he was okay with that, he was a weak man. Nicksick saying, well, Sean Strickland should be able to take the tough love. Perhaps he's insinuating that Sean was a little oversensitive. And as I said, I think that Sean is a sensitive guy. I think he puts up a tough front that has a lot of vulnerability behind it. His girlfriend is a psychologist, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if that's coincidental. Perhaps it is. Maybe that's a little bit of a stretch, but you get what I'm saying here. And you get what Nicksick is saying here. Sean maybe should have shouldered this a little bit better if Nicksick is going to be as honest as he was. I can understand that perspective when Sean has this public persona that he puts out there. So, interesting note.
Now, where my wording was wrong was when Ariel said, do you want to continue to coach Sean?
In situations like this, where your motivations might change, and if that's the case, if his motivations have changed to something different, where it's like, hey, I prefer to fight for money or a paycheck, and it's not to be the best or be a world champion, then yeah, I think as a coach and fighter, we should sit down and have that conversation. And you know, I love him, man. He's a great teammate. He's a great guy. You guys heard me say that time and time again. But you know, if your fights aren't to be the best in the world and they're for money, then that's not really what I'm looking for. I want to compete against the best. I want to win world titles, and you know, that's my main focus and goal.
On the heels of what he told me prior, my response should have been championship mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Not champions. I don't coach all champions, and I get that.
Yeah.
Sean has a championship mindset. He works his ass off. He spars hard. He busts his fucking nose in his fight. I can never do what Sean does.
Right.
But when you tell me that your motives have changed and it's not to be a champion maybe per se, my only real big incentive is like, yo, let's chase greatness.
Mm-hmm.
But I fucking worded it wrong. And what I've learned over the years is you should probably give people a little grace here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I can't bat 1,000, and I made a mistake. I made a calculated error on that part. But what I was trying to do in a roundabout way was to challenge my fighter to perform better the next time out.
Yeah, but you don't do it publicly. And I know that he's saying that he fucked up by doing this. So I'm not, I'm not challenging that aspect of it. And I get what he's getting at with that. But that's the response is, yeah, I think that we all can kind of understand that when you frame it that way, but it's the fact that you did it on the biggest stage possible. The entire sport heard you say this. You know what I mean? This wasn't just Sean getting tough love directly. This was Sean getting it and the rest of the world being witness to it. So that's the counter argument. And he already understands that, but just making that apparent and clear.
Because here's a guy who has publicly talked shit about Edmund, Vittori, other coaches, said all these things. And the reason why he does that is because he's trying to get the best out of them. And people think he's a fucking piece of shit. Oh, he's this. I know what Sean's trying to do. Mm-hmm. And I've defended him for what he said and how he said it because he wants what's best for his guys in the room. Mm-hmm. And it comes off shitty. People are like, oh, that's a bad teammate. But I know what he's trying to accomplish. So I try to do a little bit of what Sean does and give him a taste of his own medicine and trying to get a fucking response out of him going, I'm going to prove this motherfucker wrong.
Okay, that's interesting. You know, I don't think I've ever heard Nicksick frame that way before. Like, I have not heard a lot of discussion around this, so I wouldn't have. But that's an interesting element of this. A lot of people would say that it really doesn't matter what Sean's intention is with that, because it's the perception that's going to get people thinking how they're going to think. So it's like, yeah, if that's what his motivation is, that's one thing, but you know, you're still acting like an asshole though. It's the whole, you know, and I mean, I'm not saying that that's right or wrong necessarily, but there does have to be a common ground. And I'll tell you a real quick story from my own life that is why I know this to be so. Long time ago, I used to have a project called Haddock News. That was a comedy project that I worked on. And I had made a joke about a person who I thought I was going to have common ground with. And that person took the joke very, I guess, personally, and took it harshly, did not like it, voiced their dissatisfaction with me making the joke. I doubled down on it because I was like, hey, you're supposed to be a comedian. You know, you should be able to handle a joke if I'm intending it as a joke. And the response that I got was, well, it doesn't matter if you intended it as a joke or not. This is how it's being perceived. So thus you're being an asshole. I have a lot of opinions about how that whole thing went down. And, you know, I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of opinions about how Sean conducts himself with all of that. It really only matters to the people who he's actually being an asshole to. So if Shabazian or whoever else he's been talking about is okay with that, then so be it. But as I've been removed from the situation that I just talked about in my own life, I've at least come around to understand that aspect of that situation that I was in more so than I did at the time. So I can understand people perceiving Sean to be an asshole in the situations that they're encountering him in.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Right.
I guarantee you this. If I'm in his corner or not, do you think he's going to fight harder next time?
Definitely.
So, did I fuck up? Did I go out and call him out? Or did I say anything that no one else was saying?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's going to fight harder or not. I don't know if he's going to adjust his style or not. That's an interesting element of this. We'll see if it worked or not. He's thinking yes, obviously. I don't know if that's true or not, because Sean had not evolved going into this fight, so we'll have to see. Loon, what's up? How you doing, brother? Thanks for checking in, man. Good to see you again. We are going over Erick Nicksick's response to the response. It's actually kind of eye-opening. I wasn't expecting it to be as multi-layered as it is. There's some interesting elements to this. He's playing a little bit of 4D chess here. You know, roundabout way, I'm inspiring Sean to be better. Well, A, we'll see if it worked because, you know, it seems like Sean didn't perceive it that way. And B, regardless of what your intentions were, the fallout has not been great. Chill and sipping as always. I like it, my man. Didn't see the fight, but 4D chess is always good. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, if you are just catching up on all of this, Sean Strickland did not win his fight with Dricus, and his performance has been criticized pretty widely in a big way by his head coach, who is this man right here, Eric Nicksick, with the big red beard. So, yeah, Eric Nicksick coming out vocally, I guess condemning, for lack of a better word, his fighter, and he's explaining to us why he did that and all of the circumstances that went into that. The coach called him out. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why this is all kind of an interesting set of progressions. So the basic timeline for you, just coming in the middle here, Sean loses the fight. Nicksick, his coach, goes on Ariel Helwani, one of the largest MMA platforms in the world, and has a lot of negative things to say about him. Sean responds saying that he's not going to be coached by this guy any longer, and now this is the response to the response. And so Nicksick here was just saying that he was saying those things because if you know Sean Strickland, he has a very verbose and antagonistic personality, is one way to put it. He's saying that he was responding to him in a way that Sean would respond to someone else. So almost mirroring Sean in the way that he approached his response. Sean did not respond in kind to that response. So this is the response to the response to the response, yada, yada.
I was probably the best on him compared to Dean Thomas,
Yeah.
or other people, right? Bilal Muhammad, like these guys were going after him.
Yeah, but you're his coach, though, so it doesn't matter what other people say. The rest of the world is going to have whatever the hell they want to say. You know what I mean? That, of course, Bilal Muhammad's going to talk shit. Bilal Muhammad talks shit about everybody. Bilal Muhammad is setting up fights. Bilal Muhammad has very different motivations than you as the coach have. Dean Thomas, I did think was a little weird that he decided to get involved in all of this. Like, that was so random. I don't know why generally nice guy Dean Thomas felt like he needed to insert himself into this situation, but it was strange. Either way, it doesn't matter what Dean Thomas or Bilal Muhammad or Luke Rockhold or literally any other person on the planet says. You're in his locker room. You're in his gym. You are, for all intents and purposes, his friend in addition to being his employee to an extent. So, doesn't really matter. Coach shouldn't be in the limelight, in your opinion? Yeah, that's actually an interesting element of this as well. In Sean's response to Nicksick's original statements, he basically said, oh, well, you know, Eric is just trying to be an influencer. He wants to be a podcast guy now. I did not realize that all of this, what we're watching here, apparently Nicksick kind of has gone down that road a little bit. I thought he was just referring to him being on Ariel's show. I did not realize that Nicksick had this whole podcast studio, obviously has an editor. You're seeing this editing that's going on here with the Bilal Muhammad graphic that we're looking at right now. Yeah, interesting element of it. I don't know if I agree that like coaches should never be in the limelight. They're a part of this sport as much as any other peripheral figure is. But I don't necessarily agree with the way that he handled this situation with Sean, of course. And he even said, I mean, he said himself that he handled it poorly.
And they're, oh, you're piling on. No, I'm being open and honest to the constructive criticism that we all should take on.
Right.
Myself included. Danny, the gym, Sean. Right?
Yep.
So I've learned so much during this time. I fucked up. I shouldn't have said what I said, and I should have gone on Ariel. MMA media is not your friend.
Aha! There you go. Plus money cashes. Plus money cashes. He throws Ariel under the bus. Let's go. I don't have my air horn up. Hold on. Hold, please. This thing wants to load. Because I called that one. You heard me call it. Whoop. Sorry. There we go. Apologize about that. But which one is it? Hey! Plus money cashes. Ariel gets thrown under the bus. You feel like the coach should be behind the scenes unless he's obviously a great. I mean, arguably Eric Nicksick is a great. I mean, Eric Nicksick has coached some of the best champions that we've seen in the sport. I mean, Coach Sean, Francis Ngannou. Who else are champions that Nicksick coaches? Is that the only two? That's the only two I can think of off the top of my head. But I mean, arguably he like I said at the start of the stream, like if you would ask me who my favorite coach was, I would have said Eric Nicksick. I think he is one of the absolute best coaches in the game. If done on social media, it's not common. Yeah, I mean, right, like that's what he's saying here. I mean, he didn't go about it the right way. So, I mean, I do agree that, like, he has taken his own licks for how he handled it, but, yeah, it's just an odd situation in general with all of the dynamics.
Ariel did nothing wrong.
Right.
Oh,
the way
reel it back.
Splinters off.
Reel it back,
shit
people.
Is where I fucked up. But everything has a silver lining. And I learned a lot about myself during this time. I learned a lot about where my time is served. I learned a lot about people in my own gym. I learned a ton. And I come out of this on the other end going, I will be better for it. Thank you for showing me this. God, universe, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to improve because of it, whether I'm in Sean's corner or not.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack there, but I think that was really well said. Couple things from me. Number one, and I told you this, there's honor in what your message was. The people saying that you threw him under the bus and this and that, whatever, those people, A, don't listen to any context. They don't have any context. And B, you know how many fucking shitbag coaches are out there that will let their fighter continue to fight for a paycheck so they can make a little bit of money? Shitbag managers, same thing. There's honor in saying, like, hey, and again, like you said, the message was correct. Maybe the way you said it wasn't correct.
Absolutely.
But
I mean, well, to pull it back real quick, first of all, people responding without context, everything that he just said to give context was the context that we all had. Like, nothing that he added really put any more context onto it that changes the dynamic of what we were witnessing. So I don't really agree that there was like a context issue there. And then the second part, how is that a shitbag move by the coach to allow fighters to keep fighting for a paycheck if that's what the fighter wants to do? A lot of people fight for a paycheck. A lot of people fight to put food on the table. Not everybody's going to be a champion. Not everybody is champion material. Eric Nicksick, I guess, is holding himself to a higher standard as a coach, but I don't think it's a shitbag move to coach people who are not going to achieve the gold. Those guys need coaches too. I don't think that that's a scummy move. Even if it is a former champion, I don't think that that's a scummy move. So I don't agree with the framework of that. Sounds like he was really successful in ego, and he accepted his flaws. Yeah, I would say so. I mean, again, it's just the timeline happened how it happened, and now he's having to do a little bit of damage control, which is why this is actually kind of eye-opening. I didn't know what to expect listening to this, to be perfectly honest. I didn't know if he was going to double and triple down on Sean, or how he was going to approach it, because if you're not aware, Sean fired him. I mean, Sean is no longer having him as his coach anymore because of all of this. So, he is in a position right now to be like going scorched earth if he really wanted to. I think he's handling it pretty well, all things considered, acknowledging that he made a mistake in the first place, which is really how I had approached this thing in the first place myself. I was like, yeah, I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you at least have to acknowledge that you were wrong to come out publicly on the largest platform that there is in this sport and throw your guy under the bus. And they're saying that, oh, he didn't throw him under the bus. I mean, you can frame it however you want to frame it. You still kind of did. I mean, he's talking about everybody dogpiling and him not dogpiling. It's like, it doesn't matter that you were not the last person on top of the pile. You were still in the pile. There just happened to be a very large pile that you were a part of, and you're the guy that is in his corner. So that's what makes it different. Strange to see the focal on a coach after the fight. Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one of the main elements of why this is interesting. And then also, like I said, I mean, Nicksick is a coach that I respect very greatly. So when I saw this and saw that he had posted this and that he spelled his own last name incorrectly, he was so fired up that he couldn't even get his own last name spelled right. I was like, yeah, I gotta check this out.
There's honor in saying, hey, I want to coach you because I want you to be great, and I want to be great with you. If we're just fighting for a paycheck, I'm not in it for that. Yes, Sean, at the end of the day, the fighter, not even just Sean, the fighter is taking, the biggest risk in terms of their health and wellness and getting in there and fighting. Nobody is arguing that, I don't think. But there is context provided. A guy who has a wife and 3 beautiful children. Danny just had a baby, I think.
Yeah. Danny's newborn kid.
Other coaches that have families, like, there's a lot of time invested in these things. And so, again, back to my point, the message of, if you just want to show up to do this for a paycheck, that's fine. But I'd rather not. I'm putting all this time into it to chase something that's that's going to outlast me, right? When I die, it's like Erick Nicksick, 4-time coach of the year, 4 world champion, that stuff's going to last forever.
Yeah, but I mean, again, I think that the framework that you're presenting this in is incorrect, though. Like, Erick Nicksick or any coach would not be wrong to still coach that guy, even if his priorities changed. And also, Nicksick is not wrong to not want to coach him with his priority changed either. Like, I don't. This whole framework of all of this is just incorrect to me. Like, either way, he's not wrong. But, like, to have that as part of the context that you're trying to provide here is, I think, what I'm taking issue with. So, I don't know. It's going to look bad on a fighter when he gets another one to become champion. Yeah. I mean, that's... Yeah, you're saying it's going to look bad for Strickland when the next guy that Nicksick coaches is a champ. I mean, Sean was already the champion at one point, so that's, I guess, another good point to bring up in this conversation is that you already achieved this with Sean. Like, the goal was already reached. So if you're saying that, oh, well, I only want to reach that goal repeatedly, like, I only want to have that as the driving force, then I guess really at the end of the day, what you can chalk it up to is that your values just aren't aligned, and that's fine too. But I don't think that he or any other coach would be wrong to say, oh, well, if your values change or your priorities in the sport change, that I'm still going to coach you. Like, I don't think that that's a lack of honor, because that's really the way that this co-host is presenting it. Like, you're not honorable if you have still coached him, which I think is false. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? The paycheck, however big or little it may be, will come and go.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean when the message is, like, correct. The other thing is, like, by the way, for people to say, like, you don't care about your fighter and stuff, like, this is the same dude who fucking was willing to throw away I shouldn't say throw away, but was willing to not coach the fucking lineal MMA heavyweight champion because he was getting treated unfairly at the UFC. And on film, go watch it on YouTube, Road to Recovery, says, these motherfuckers don't give a fuck about you. Why are you trying to do them a favor and fight with a blown out knee?
But what do you have to lose? if this gets worse or you get hurt.
That's when he was
or you
coaching
lose
Francis
this fight.
Ngannou.
I know, we all know, these motherfuckers don't give a fuck about you, bro.
That's a paycheck. It's probably a good paycheck.
Yeah.
And he's saying that because he doesn't care about the money. He wants his fighter to be okay. Like,
Yeah, I never thought that he didn't care about Sean. I don't think that was ever correct if that's what people were actually thinking. I think that he was angry. You know, I mean, like I understand that perspective as well. Like his mindset that he was describing going into the interview. He was upset. You could tell. You could tell in the interview. You know, lack of sleep from the travel, all that kind of stuff too. He himself saying that he should not have gone and done the interview. All of that is adding up. I never in this entire equation thought that he didn't care about his fighter by doing the interview. I just think that it was the wrong place and the wrong time and the wrong set of words.
you know, all these people, these fucking people that don't, you know, have any context or have just come into the sport recently, it irritates me. But you know, that's where we are too as a
Well, I
people.
realize that people, if for so long, man, you know, I was so worried about the way people think of you, or like what they want to say, or what they say, or what they this or that.
Call
Or
them
just
casuals.
you want to be liked,
Yeah.
and really like you're just not liked by everyone.
You're
That's
not
just-
going to be.
you're
And
not
also, when
going
you're
to
in the
be.
position that you are, where you're in the limelight and you're you know, in front of the camera on fights and media and all kind of stuff, like not everyone's gonna like you, and that's okay.
Yeah, see, that was a casual adjacent comment that he had made earlier, the co-host. You know, people who are newer to the sport. Yeah, strange situation. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's odd. But yeah, I mean, no, and Eric Nicksick is real. That's what I'm saying. This is why I like him as a coach. I think he's a genuinely good person in this sport, as far as I've seen. I mean, like, you know, there's always skeletons that you might not know about, possibly. I've never heard anything through the grapevine about Nicksick. So as far as I know, I mean, you know, this is like, that's another reason why, like, I've been kind of covering this, or like interested in doing this stream tonight, was because this is kind of out of left field for Nicksick, this whole thing. So it's interesting.
That's
you know,
okay.
You know
yeah.
who needs to like you? Your wife,
Yeah.
your kids, and your fucking circle that
And
of your
bro,
friends.
have they really came to my defense?
I'm sure.
Like guys that like
Your wife and
know,
kids?
like, yo,
I hope
coach,
so.
like, I know what you meant. I know what you're trying to say. I know that like that saying, I love you too much to leave you the way that you are.
right.
Bro, I'm trying to get the best out of you when you're not giving your best, or you're
Right.
not doing the best you can do.
Right.
Right? Like Sean became a world champion because he fucking busts his ass. He works hard. He does all those things, right? I couldn't agree more. But since he beat Izzy, I've seen a change,
Yeah.
right? So
We all
I
have.
said what I said and hoping to get him back.
Flip the switch back on.
Yep. So
But you don't do it on Ariel Helwani's show. That's and you know this. I'm repeating myself, but yeah, I mean, like, it bears repeating. It's not a bad thing to do that if that's the way that you communicate with Sean, but you do it in private. Right, not on the socials, exactly.
if that makes me a shitty person or a bad coach, or you know, whatever, I don't know, but I don't regret it.
Yeah.
That what I said, I regret the timing of it and the wording of it.
Right. Yeah. And you know, you're also not going to talk to every fighter the same way. The way you
I would hope not.
motivate Sean or try to
Nailed it,
motivate
bro.
Sean is not the same way you're going to do it with Francis or
Never-
Puna
yeah.
or Ige.
Yeah.
Well, Francis won't even fucking listen to you, but Puna or Ige, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know
it's
he
just
coached
not
Puna
the same
Soriano.
way. And if what you're saying, like you said, in the gym,
Dope.
you see how he helps Edmund and
Got a
and
great
other
roster.
fighters, but then will publicly say some shit to try to like motivate them, then you know how to communicate with Sean directly or indirectly.
That's kind of what I thought.
Yeah, well,
You know?
yeah, but and, you know, and again, stuff will happen. Even
He wrote me,
yeah,
he texted me and said the same thing.
yeah,
But see, this is why you can't be mad at the people who don't have the context, because when you do it publicly, what are you thinking people are going to think? You're having a private conversation with the entire world. So yeah, everybody's going to lack context. That's what this guy is saying. You know, his co-host here saying, oh, you know, it bothers me that everybody is commenting on it without context. If you do it publicly, then they're like, you can't expect people to have the context. I mean, you know,
the night he posted his Instagram video, which why wouldn't you just say that then? Like he literally texted me and said, "Hey man, everything you said was spot on.
Yeah.
Right? I know you're just trying to get the best out of me."
Yeah.
Then say that.
Yeah.
And
that's a little bit of the juicier stuff though. That they put that clip in the intro for a reason. So he's saying here that the night that Sean posted his response video, that before he did the video, he texted Eric saying, "Yeah, I understand all of what you said. I agree. I know what you were trying to do. Everything's cool." Then goes out and posts the video firing him, basically. So spicy.
Now we're not in this like
Weird,
you know.
Yeah.
And look, man, we could have easily just said, "Fuck it, this will go away." But there's context to this that I want people to understand.
Definitely.
That's all.
That's why we're here.
And if you love me or you hate me, so be it. I'm just gonna continue to keep doing my thing.
Yeah.
And in 2 weeks from now, this will all be forgot anyway. Who gives a shit?
Yeah. MMA is so funny, bro. Like these dudes, and listen, I'm not saying physically. I know they're all professional fighters. They'll beat me up. I get all that. Whatever. They are the biggest, softest. They are so emotional.
Oh!
And like,
Did you see that cut? What did he say that had to get cut? You saw that cut? You see that little cut?
they are the biggest, softest. They are so emotional. And like,
he said something that you don't say. But I do feel what he's saying, though. And look, man, everybody is. Everybody is. That's the whole... This is why I get upset when people say things like, oh, don't take things personally. Everybody is sensitive. Like, it's... People say, oh, you know, you don't have a thick skin. People, when they talk about, like, oh, people are sensitive, they're basically saying, oh, I was an asshole and these people got upset by it. Man, look at these guys getting upset at me being a prick. Yeah, people get upset when you act like a prick. You know what I mean? Like, everybody does. So, like, it's not just fighters. Battle rap was the same shit, dude. You know? Come from battle rap. The battle rappers are some of the most sensitive motherfuckers on the planet. All these dudes going out talking about all the gats that they spray and all this shit. Pulling triggers. Selling dope. Smacking heads kind of shit. You know? All of those dudes, you talk shit about their bars, they're in their feelings. They're in the comments, typing paragraphs when you criticize a line. So it's everybody, bro. I mean, bro, this is the same thing here. Like, this dude right here, if I started going in on this guy about his skills as a podcast co-host, like, if it was something that he took very seriously, that's the thing. That's, I think, also the big part of this, too, is that fighters take their craft very seriously. If this guy is trying to be a professional podcaster and I start going in on his abilities on the microphone or his structuring of a conversation or whatever, and this is his life, this is the thing that he put all of his effort into, this is what he hangs his hat on, then yeah, when you start criticizing it, people get upset. So anytime that people say this whole shit, oh, these guys are babies, blah, 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 it's their life. It's everything that they work for. It's their entire being. They put their entire lives into this. So for you to say, oh, you're just being sensitive, everybody is at the level that we're talking about when we're talking about former world champion Sean Strickland. I feel like the fighter is in the wrong, but the coach is in the wrong. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Aluni and I would agree with you completely. I mean, Sean is in the wrong to an extent because, you know, he didn't necessarily like follow the advice kind of thing, but it's kind of a muddy situation with that because, as I said a little bit earlier in the stream, like Sean has kind of adjusted his fight style in a way that Nicksick has to be aware of. So for Nicksick to be upset about Sean not taking his direction in the cage, you kind of know what your fighter is like nowadays. So I don't know. I factor that in how you want to factor it. But yeah, I mean, I guess Sean texting Nicksick and saying one thing and then doing another thing publicly was kind of scummy as well. So yeah, there's a lot of different elements to it. This is a multi-layered onion over here. We're just peeling back the layers.
Athletes in general are kind of like that. They're very fragile in that way. Like Kevin Durant's on Twitter all the time,
yeah, because he put his life into basketball.
Like, they're just so soft. For people who are so hard and like fight for a living and are like elite athletes, man, are they fucking soft.
Please say something to push back on this, Erick Nicksick.
And they can't just, I've seen it a lot with a number of athletes. It's hard for them to just have a conversation rather than go to Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or whatever. But anyway, what I was saying was kudos to you for addressing it. A lot of people
not going to say anything about that.
Stuff under the
just
rug.
going to be okay with that. All right.
At every level.
I mean, I would have thought that would have been an appropriate time to say something along the lines of what I just said. Because like, yeah, dude, I mean, regardless of you not being a fighter, you're not looking at this from a very human perspective when you say things like that. You have to put yourself in the shoes of the other person a little bit. So that's definitely a criticism of this co-host. He's not wrong though, but honestly, it's human to be that way. What's wrong with that? No, I mean, well, it's the framing of it is what I take issue with. To call somebody a pussy for being invested in the thing that they work so hard for and to be sensitive about it when criticized, I think is that I do take a little bit of an issue with that. Like, because it's what you're saying to a person when you're criticizing them about something that they're that passionate about is probably something that they're already internalizing, and they don't need that. That's where the pile-on comes on. They don't need to be doubled and tripled over with negativity from someone who's completely outside of their world. When it comes to a guy like this, now, Nicksick, it's a little bit different. He's within the world, maybe he could say that. But even him, I think it would be wrong to hear that from, because he's not the one inside the cage. I mean, my point is that, like, when you put your all into something, you're already attached to it in a way that is far and wide above anything else that is comparable to another person who's not on that same wavelength. Like, wherever you are with that thing, like, you've elevated it to a level that is not the same as this guy who's just from an outsider's perspective saying, oh, you're being sensitive. It's like, you don't know. You're talking about context. These guys are talking a lot about context. You don't know the context that you're omitting by being critical. That's a deep thought. Life's work at a young age. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. That's a great point of this as well. I mean, that's why you end up seeing fighters when they're in their post-fighting years, having a hard time struggling to adjust to not being a fighter. They put their entire life in being that person. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so it's very easy for this guy to say, oh, you're just being a pussy. It's like, bro, you're not walking in my shoes. And it's, again, I'm not saying it in the sense of like, oh, that guy could kick your ass. I'm saying it in the sense of like, this is my fucking everything. Like, you're right. You can think whatever you want to think about it personally, but like, for you to vocalize it to me, or whoever it is that obviously, to me as the fighter, it's like, if for you to vocalize it to that person, like, you're being very callous in doing that, I think. Same with an NBA player or an NFL player depressed after the game. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They don't know what to do with themselves. And also, when it comes to fighting, the window is so small and the opportunities are so few afterwards. Like, at least for NBA players and, football players and stuff like that, there's a lot of different things that you can do with that. And there is some stuff within the sports world that these guys can do. They can be analysts. They can, even that's a tight window. There's only like a handful of fighters that go on to do, desk jobs. with the organization at least. But like, you know, for football players and stuff, you know, the pay is greater, the opportunities and the exposure is greater. There's a higher percentage of chance that you can land on your feet. With fighting, it's like it's a bright spark, and then the fade out is very quick as well. And if you're not set up for some kind of exit strategy, it can be a really trying existence for a lot of these guys. Also compounded with the CTE and all of those things as well that come with having fought for so many years.
Level of the UFC and beyond.
Well, it needs to be addressed.
It needs to be addressed. Exactly.
And first and foremost, the mistake that I made.
Yeah.
That needs to be addressed.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he's doing that. I'm glad he's saying that.
There's context to it all. But the mistake was I shouldn't have gone on the show. And I did. And now I have to kind of take the best perspective out of going on the show and what the ripple effect and the aftermath was from it. And I learned a lot.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah.
Eddie Bracco called me. He told me the beautiful story, but he's like, is this a good thing or a bad thing? And right now he said, it feels like a bad thing.
Yeah.
But he goes, you're going to get through this and go later on and maybe realize like, hey, this was actually what I needed. This is a good thing.
Well,
yeah. Getting rid of Sean was probably a good thing. I mean, even without all of how this went down, getting rid of Sean Strickland, I mean, maybe more pros than cons in that in the big picture. If you know Sean Strickland, I mean, there's an argument to be made there. It's good he addressed the issues, though, as a coach. It depends on if he does it again or is he creating a new tone. Yeah, well, I mean, I think that that's also a big part of this is knowing the fighter himself. Like, if you're not familiar with Sean Strickland is a very has a very distinct personality and a persona that he operates within. So I don't, like they said it earlier in the stream, like, you know, the way that he would talk to Sean or the way that he would try to motivate Sean is going to be very different than how he would motivate another fighter. I do believe that. So I don't think that he needs to necessarily like set an entirely new tone in general. It's more about continuing to mirror the fighter that you're working with. And if Sean is going to vacillate between being this brash, outlandish, over-the-top, shoot-from-the-hip kind of guy, and then on the other hand be this introspective, sensitive person who's going to take these things and not have them have the intended effect that Nicksick was going for, then maybe splitting is the right thing to do. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that in the end, you know? Maybe there's a better fit for Strickland. Or maybe if Strickland wanted to really advance himself as a person, he would learn from this situation and change his own public face, his own persona that he presents to the world. Because I don't know if it's necessarily working for him the way that it was when he was the champion anyway. I think that the era, and it was a very small little window in there like 2 years ago or so, or a year ago, you know, whatever, within the last 2 or 3 years, whatever it was, I think that version of Sean Strickland doesn't carry the same weight as it once did. It's not the same shock value as it once was. It's not it doesn't have people hanging on his every word the same way that they once did. So maybe it's time to course correct and pull back the mask that you've put up for all this time, because it ain't jiving anymore. And that might be the biggest growth out of all of this, which could be really good for him. Maybe he goes to a new gym with a different type of coach, becomes a different type of person a little bit, mellows out in some of the outlandish shit that he says, you know, for shock value and for exposure and really more to be liked by a certain type of person, which I think is a big part of why he acts the way that he does. Maybe that's what he gets out of all of this. And maybe that's a good thing. When you learned Gracie Jiu-Jitsu from your captain, it was life or death in the military. It's strange to you how shit's different in pro fighting. Yeah, well, I mean, the learning Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in the military is an odd setting for that in general. Like what was was it an elective thing or was it like compulsory? Like, did they like teach it to you, like by, you know, like as part of your regiment? Because like jiu-jitsu is kind of like a gentle art, but having it as the like main or like a core tenet of your military training is slightly odd to me. Oh, it was Rangers. It was specific to your captain. Okay, got you. So yeah, that's an odd like methodology to like have like life or death jiu-jitsu, because like jiu-jitsu is supposed to be sort of like a more gentle method of combat. You know, like you put people to sleep so that you don't have to lay hands on them, essentially. You know what I mean? Like, you know, in a super violent way. So yeah, that's an interesting thing there. I mean, I would maybe say that that's not necessarily the best framework for it. I'm not, you know, it's not my place to say that, but from the outside looking in, you know, it might seem like that was not the best way to encounter it, but I guess it is what it is, right? I mean, and now if you know it, then I guess you're better off for it one way or another. Maybe you go and join like an actual Gracie Barra and, you know, learn it from like people that are not in that context.
Most people have media training. I'm assuming you haven't. So this was your was your training.
That was an ass whooping. That was a fucking 10-7 round.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. But no, man, like, again, I just...
It's kind of surprising to me that he's framing this as like a lot of people piling on him specifically, because within the MMA community, as far as like from the fan side of things, like, I mean, I've heard a little bit of people getting on his case, but it hasn't really been like a strong, loud condemnation. I mean, if you put it on a spectrum, you know, like you've got Bryce Mitchell over here talking his Nazi stuff. That was a strong, loud, definitive condemnation. The stuff with Eric Nicksick, I mean, you've had like pockets of people saying, hey, that might not have been the best thing to do, but he's making it sound like people were raking him over the coals when I haven't heard that necessarily. So it's interesting. And maybe that's a little bit of his own sensitivity, you know?
I just think people need to, again, this is the world we live in is you see the headline on Twitter or Instagram and it's the whole story. And it's not. That's not the case. There's context to be provided. You know, I saw people saying like, oh, you only want to coach champions. Well, what about this guy, this guy, this guy? It's like, dude, again, there's context like with what he's saying. He wants people who want to be a world champion, whether you're, you know, 20-17 or 20-0. If you have the mindset of like wanting to be a champion, that's what you're talking about.
Sure.
And so like, you know, bro, people just grab the headline.
The Dan Iges of the world, bro. Like this guy gives championship effort day in and day out. Kai Kamaka, Jeremy King. Like the list goes on and on and on.
Right.
Puna. It's a mindset.
Right.
Yeah, but that's what I keep going back to this because they keep bringing it up. Fighters are not wrong for just wanting to fight just to fight, though. So I understand him saying that's not the type of fighter that he wants to train, and that's fine. But I don't appreciate this villainization of fighters that are essentially jobbing, you know? Because a lot of those fighters that are just fighting for a paycheck are having to work 2 and 3 other jobs in order to afford to live. So, you know, an extra 12 and 12 goes a very long way for those guys. So to think that there's some kind of dishonor in coaching those guys, I don't agree with that, like, at all.
And Sean has it.
Yeah.
Sean has it.
Right.
I've seen it. I want to get it out of him again.
Yeah.
Whether I'm in his corner or not, I can give a shit.
Yeah.
I really could. I really could. Deep down, I care about the guy.
Mm-hmm.
I
And that's
care
what being a
about the
coach
guy.
is at the end of the
Dude.
day.
I wish I had an awe drop on the soundboard. That was his, like, man way of saying, bro, but I love you, though.
He's he's made us all better. And I know we've made him better, right? Sean and I will continue to be friends.
Yep.
Like somebody wrote me,
is he getting
I talked to DC.
Getting a little emotional?
I talked to Bisming. I talked to Tom Aspinall. What do they all have in common?
World champs.
Every one of them. Yo, bro, I appreciate what you
all right,
said.
maybe not. Maybe his
Because
voice just
they
cracked
knew
for a
what I'm
second
trying
there.
to do.
Yeah.
trying to get the best out of my athlete.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
That's all. But the one thing that DC said, he was like, so like you just kick Sean out of the gym now, or like, no, like we might not see eye to eye on this moment.
Right.
I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things with Sean.
Right.
But what I do think and what I do see out of him is the guy fucking works his ass off. He's a great dude in the gym, right? I might not agree with his political views or the things that he says, this or that, but that has never wavered whether we won or lost.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's never changed.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue on. I'm going to continue to support him whether I'm in his corner or not. But like I said, I guarantee you the next time out, that dude's going to fucking fight a little harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a fine point with all of that. And also, I wouldn't be so shocked if Strickland reneges on this firing of Nicksick. If you recall, Sean Strickland and Chris Curtis, two very emotional guys in their own right, were friends, then they weren't friends. Now I guess they're friends again. They had a podcast for one episode. They don't have a podcast, whatever. I wouldn't be overly shocked if down the line Sean releases another Instagram video saying, hey, you guys, I was a little bit caught up in the moment, you guys. Here's the thing, you guys, like things like this happen between me and Eric. I love the guy. He's a good guy. So, guys, we're going to get back to business as usual. Like, I don't think this is going to affect the overall of our relationship, you guys. We're going to do the thing and get back to doing the man dance. And you know what, you guys, I'm going to keep fighting for you and blah, 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 all this Sean Strickland shit.
Yeah. And that's all you can ask for.
That's it.
I feel like we addressed enough of that. Yeah.
Sure.
You feel
Yeah.
good about
Good.
that? Okay, good. We should move on to last night in Edmond. Beautiful performance.
Oh, is that it?
You were in the corner.
All right, we'll listen to his stuff on
was he
Edmond
coming
in the
off a
next
few
week. I guess
losses,
we
or did
can
he win
call
his
it.
last?
Yeah, I've been going for about
Ed
2 hours. I think
lost
that's probably
to
enough on this
Mershart.
subject.
Yeah.
It's like a loss, a win, a loss.
Yeah.
But I think the Mershard fight, if I remember correctly, I think he dropped Mershard and almost got him out of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mershart was the last one. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Beautiful performance last night.
Yeah, hell yeah, it
for
was.
someone who gives terrible advice, according to Twitter in the corner, seems like your advice worked last night.
Bro, these guys are sensitive. You're calling everybody else sensitive. Why are you reading Twitter? Why are you reading Twitter and getting their takes on your cornering? Or on, Nicksick's cornering, obviously. But, like, why? What the fuck? Never read Twitter ever. Stay the fuck off Twitter. Twitter is an absolute cesspool. That's why Sean's on it so much.
Yeah, sun shines on a dog's ass.
Can you talk about the fight? Beautiful. What was it, like a pull counter kind of punch?
Ed's got a great right hand.
Yeah.
This has been the first camp that I've got to work with Ed.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's been in XC a lot, but he was working with like Dewey at one point, a couple other coaches at one point. So this was your first time
yeah,
in his corner?
So, obviously with Dewey being on the road so much,
Yeah.
it was one of those situations where Dewey's like, hey, maybe Eric can give you a little bit more one-on-one.
Yeah.
And I've always liked Ed, man. He's an
course.
amazing, amazing guy. And then like just that kind of connection I thought we had right from the jump, man, it just worked.
Yeah.
Just worked. So yeah.
See, and that's what you get when you get Edmund Shabazian away from Edmund Tarverdian. You get him out of that Ronda Rousey ecosystem. Get him away from Rowdy Ronda, and good things start to happen.
Just in working with him, man, like he's super sharp everywhere. And the right hand was just, dude, he
Like
timed
a
it perfectly.
piston.
He did great. Look, as a coach, you just want to give 15 different things to look for, right? Or this, or this, or that. And it's on the athlete, man. And he read it perfectly. He did exactly what he needed to do in the moment. He needed that win. It was a perfect win for him.
Yeah.
Brand new dad.
Yeah, I saw.
You know, he had the baby and this whole thing. And congratulations to him and his family. He got the bonus. So
good for him.
yeah, man. Couldn't be happier for him. He just,
he did get a bonus off it. Hell yeah, he deserved it.
The one thing I got to say, though, bro, is this guy came to every drill session this entire camp.
Yeah. Monday,
Wednesday, Friday. Everything. He committed himself to every little thing that he could do to be better. You know, training with Jason Manley, pro practice and drills, right? A lot of guys don't think drilling is important. Dude, Ed drilled and drilled and drilled. Not only drilled with, you know, Mansoor, with Sadabu, with Puna.
Mansoor,
you know, like
coming
these
up.
Guys committed themselves
Mansoor
to, like,
on the come up,
honing their craft.
Yeah.
And Ed did the work. He did the work, bro. And I couldn't be more proud of him.
That's awesome, man. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, you know what? I think we'll leave it there because that's pretty much all the Sean Strickland talk. Congratulations to Edmund Shabazian on a great win. Talked about that on the podcast last night. So yeah, I think that'll be about it for tonight. A little shorter in my terms, but I'm okay with that. I think we got what we needed out of this episode of Verse Us with Erick Nicksick. Interesting. You know, an interesting situation there. And like I said, I think that things might end up getting smoothed over. We'll see if Sean even ends up leaving the gym. You know, he's been talking about wanting to work with other coaches at Extreme Couture, so that might be the way forward for him. See how it all plays out. But I think that Eric handled himself pretty well in this podcast here. I think that his summation of the situation was pretty good. And, you know, it made the best out of a bad situation, which is fine. So good stuff there. And that is where we will leave it. So that's going to do it for me tonight, everybody. As always, Monday nights is last week's fights. Make sure you tune in. If it does not start at 9, it'll start later than 9 on this very channel, youtube.com/@YamaShow. Don't know about video content for this week now because I've streamed 4 days in a row. Who knows? I might end up streaming tomorrow night too. We'll see. But either which way, keep up. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube if you are not already. That is the hub of all things Yama. And follow on the platform of your choice. And I will see you when I see you. So till then, have a great rest of your night, great rest of your week. And as always, fight on.
Game.